Welcome, welcome. We're so excited to have all of you here with us on our live webinar where we're talking with you about using Doobert for animal transport. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy days to join us. We appreciate it immensely. My name is Amy Charlton. I'm the Digital Community Outreach Manager with Best Friends Animal Society. We'll hear a little bit more about the digital community later in the webinar. And then Angie Embry, our Chief Information Officer, I'll let her introduce herself as well in just a moment. And then after that, she'll tell you a little bit about our innovation program. And after that, Chris Roy, the founder of Doobert, will jump right in to tell you all about the program, give you a demo, and then we'll talk to you about some next steps and how to ask questions as you're using the application and so on. Angie, you want to go ahead?
Hi, everybody. I'm Angie. I just want to thank you all today for coming. Technology is a very important vehicle for us to save more lives, and I'm super excited that you're all attending today. As Amy said, we are constantly working to innovate with technology here at Best Friends and identify innovative solutions to some of the barriers we face to achieving no kill. And transport has been one of those, and we think we have found a very, very fine solution in Doobert. So I'm really excited to get going on this. Thank you.
Thanks, Angie. All right, Chris, you're the star of the show. You ready to get this party started?
I'm ready. All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction, and let's see. Thank you. If you can keep presenting, I'm going to go through the slides first, and then I will show my screen after that. So if you just keep on presenting. So first of all, let me just briefly introduce myself. My name is Chris Roy. I'm the owner and creator of Doobert, and very excited to be able to share with you guys what I've built in the effort to try and help do more animal rescue transport. So Doobert's been around. It'll be 5 years in May, and we're really excited to be able to share this with you today and show you everything that it can do. So I promise not to kill you with PowerPoint. It'll be brief PowerPoint slides, and then I'm going to dive right into the actual software to show you how it works. And I'll leave plenty of time for questions and specific scenarios if people want to bring those up. So a little bit about Doobert and our mission. You know, one of the things that my background is actually in technology. In my day job, I'm an IT project manager, and I've been doing IT stuff for over 20 years. I really enjoy technology, and I enjoy bringing technology to help where it makes the most sense. Additionally, you can see in some of the pictures, I'm actually a pilot. That's another one of my passions, and that's how my passion for animals really came to life with Doobert. I was an animal rescue pilot doing rescue transport, and one day was like, why is there not an app for this? It's really difficult to coordinate and communicate with all the different people, and so I looked around, there wasn't an app, and I said, well, then I'm going to go build one. And kind of fast forward to where we are today, you'll see a lot about what Doobert can do. So if we go to the next slide, just to give you a little bit of background on Doobert, the simplest way to understand it is Doobert is kind of like Uber for rescue animals. And I say that because it works for rides across town, it works for the rescue relay type transport across the country. Very proud that we've been successfully a part of helping to save over 5,000 animals or move over 5,000 animals. We've got 650 organizations, over 18,000 volunteers now, and averaging anywhere between 40 and 50 transports a week through the platform. So we're really excited to be able to support the animal rescue community. You can see a little map down there. It just kind of shows you where our volunteers are across the country. You can't really see the numbers in there, but trust me, there's 18,000 volunteers. And the transport map, you can see we've got quite a few that happen regularly more on the East Coast. So we're really looking forward to bringing that and extending it across the country, because I get people ask me all the time, you know, what's your biggest challenge? And I say, I've got lots of volunteers and they're really passionate and they want to help, and I don't have enough transports to keep them busy. So certainly getting you guys involved and plotting transports will be a great success. So if we go to the next slide, what I want to do is just kind of walk you through some real basics before I dive into the live software. So Doubert's a little different than what you might envision of transport groups. There's a number of different rescue transport groups out there. What you've got to imagine is Doobert is a software. It's, you access it via the internet, you're accessing on a website or via the Doobert app. And so what you're doing is you're actually publishing a transport request, and the software is helping you. So it's pretty simple, as you'll see. From your organization dashboard, step one, you'll click that you want to publish a new transport. You give us the from and the to, as well as the passenger information, so the animals. We plot that route actually using Google Maps. We plot it on Google Maps so you can have a visual of the route. We give you several different options, as you'll see, for how you want to create the route. So we'll auto split it for you, or you can create the individual legs. And we've even been working to train up some volunteer transport coordinators to help with those groups that are not as familiar with doing transport. And then when you're ready, you hit publish. And when you hit publish, that's what I say when Doobert magic really starts to happen. The system automatically, as I said, plots a route on Google Maps, and it automatically will email the relevant volunteers based upon the distance they are from the route, right? The distance they indicated in their profile, as well as the days of the week that they said they were available. So we use those things to try and help eliminate unnecessary emails for people that, hey, if they're only available on Saturday or Sunday and the transport's on a Wednesday, we don't want to send them an email and say, can you help? Because per their profile, they're already not able to help. So Doobert does all of that logic for you. You don't have to do anything. You just hopefully sit back and watch your legs fill up. So if you go to the next slide. So the other thing about Doobert, keep in mind, it is a database with volunteers, and there's more volunteers joining. We probably get anywhere between 50 and 70 new volunteers a week. And when these volunteers sign up, we try to help them with multiple ways that they can get involved in animal rescues. So in addition to being transporters, which is the main thing that Doobert does, we also facilitate setting up a foster profile so you can find fosters. We do have professional photographers, so people that want to volunteer and help out local shelters or rescues by photographing animals. We even have people that do lost pet support and people that want to volunteer in person. So one of the things you'll see is that we make it pretty easy for you to find volunteers and to reach out and contact them. The way I view this is it's a national database of volunteers, and the more volunteers that we bring in at Doobert, the more volunteers every organization that we support has in return. So if you go to the next slide. We also, one of the things that I really want to emphasize today is we're also trying to help you connect with source and destination partners. Certainly, we're really excited to be able to provide technology to provide transport and linkage to volunteers and automation in that regard. We will also understand that it also begins with finding either the source to take animals that you might need to send, or the destination. So we try to facilitate that transaction, recognizing that organizations still need to pick up the phone and contact one another to work out the details. But as you'll see in the software, we try to make it easy for you to find a source or destination partner, and also to view the animals that they've marked in their profiles as they're available to transfer. So you'll see some of this functionality, and we're going to continue to build out this functionality this spring and summer. So definitely welcome your feedback in that regard. I do want to mention that every organization on Doobert must go through an application process. So similar to what all of you did becoming Best Friends Network partners, we have an organization application process at Doobert. And so we do check every single organization. We only allow legitimate animal rescues and shelters and transport and friends of shelter organizations. So we do, I actually do have volunteers that are checking every single organization. So you can be assured that the organizations have at least been through some level of vetting, and we're always open to ideas and ways that we can improve upon that. One of the most common questions I get is, do you check your volunteers? And the simple way I'll describe it is we have two levels of volunteers. So we have general volunteers, which are kind of, people can sign up and quickly get going. And then we have what I call Doobert Verified. And Doobert Verified runs a similar application process as the organization, in that we basically verify the legitimacy of the person. So we ask for their driver's license, we check every single reference, we do our own public record checking to verify that this is somebody as reputable as we can find from doing that public internet searching. Our goal is to try and make it easier for you to find, volunteers that are passionate about animal rescue and want to help, and to find other organizations that, fit the criteria for what you want to work with. You always have full control. You'll find there's a lot of powerful features in Doobert. Every organization has their own block list. So if there's ever a volunteer that you find that you don't have a good experience with, simply block them from your organization. They'll never get your transport request again. And we also have a fully functioning feedback system. So kind of like feedback that you would do on eBay or Amazon, you're able to leave feedback on volunteers, and they can leave feedback on the coordinators as well. So lots of different things you'll find in there for us, trying to facilitate a better experience and help you to find the people you want to work with. So you can go to the next page, Amy. So the final part before I dive into the software, I just kind of wanted to, Doobert is a software platform, and I'm continuing to build this out. And I'm really excited to be working with Best Friends and building out some additional features here this spring, and we'll launch these this summer. So the first is we're seeking to expand beyond just the volunteer transport to provide, I call it an Expedia-like experience, right? So imagine, when you need a flight, you go to Expedia and you don't necessarily care which airline. It gives you all the options to get from, say, Chicago to LA. Well, why can't we have something like that in the animal transport world as well? So imagine if you could see volunteer transports or other vans or even commercial transports and see all of your options in one place. And that's one of the things that we're looking to build out. Additionally, imagine if you could see that a van that was going, say, from LA to Chicago had 2 empty spots, 2 empty crates, right? That organization maybe didn't need to fill up the capacity of their van. We want to try and make that reservation capacity available to other organizations to help us all work with one another and be able to reserve a spot for an animal on another transport. We're trying to just help you find the best way to get the animals to where they need to go. We're also going to be looking at trying to eliminate redundancy. I know all of you guys work so hard and you just don't have time to have to set up more and more animal profiles. So we're going to be trying to automate some of that with technology by interfacing. And finally, one of the things that we want to do is keep saying, what else can these transport volunteers do? And so I've been contacted by a number of different pet food banks to say, is there something we could do to help distribute pet food in their communities or pick up pet food from organizations that are donating? And the answer is absolutely yes. So we want to try and make that type of functionality a little bit easier for people to utilize in the system. And I think I have one more slide, Amy, and then we'll be ready to dive into the software. So I just want to, my thought is, imagine that if we can increase shelter adoption rates because we're able to safely move animals coast to coast, right, to balance out the supply and demand needs. I believe that the software can help us to do this, to help us aggregate the various things that are going on. Imagine if you have one place, one unified software platform to find volunteers and organizations and adopters and all of those things together in one place. And what's really exciting to me is I think about the possibilities of the last one, being able to proactively help balance some of the things such as breed overpopulation. The more data that we have in one system, we can be proactively making recommendations and saying, hey, you're looking for a Chihuahua, this organization has got 10 of them and 5 are available to transfer. We can start using, you've probably heard the term machine learning, to do a better job of helping you facilitate making your jobs a little bit easier. So with that, if you want to go ahead and make me a presenter now, Amy, then I am going to dive into the software. And what I'm going to try and do is just start out with a very simple login. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen here. Oops. So I'm going to be using my sandbox today, just more to show you everything without actually sending out notifications to the volunteer. So I'm going to log in here as an organization. And so as you log in as an organization, you'll see that there's an organization dashboard. And when you first look at it, it's a little bit overwhelming. But I think as you start to kind of click around and click through it, it should be pretty intuitive as to how things work. So what I want to do right away is just show you how quickly you can set up a transport. So if you remember before, I talked about you start with publishing a transport. So we'll see down here in the lower left-hand corner, there's a button here that says Publish Transport. So I'm going to go ahead and add a transport. We have multiple types of transports. You can copy from previous ones, things like that. And now what you're doing is you're providing the information to the system that we're going to use to generate a unique transport page for you and the information that we're going to actually send out to the volunteers. So you're going to specify the pickup transport, pickup date and drop-off date. So remember what I told you, these dates are utilized to determine is it a relevant day for us to notify the volunteer. You see we have sending and receiving party information. Volunteers often want to know where are these animals going from, where are they going to. So you can see now we've got our pickup and drop-off location, and we've got all of the zip codes in the US and Canada are all preloaded. So you can easily, so if I just said in this case we were going to go to Chicago, Illinois. All right, so you can either do it by zip code or you can type city and state. Quick story on the passengers. People always like to know what's the story, showing the pictures, things like that. And then, as I mentioned, we attach our passengers. Right, so you can either do these pretty quick here. If you added them, and I'll show you in a second how you can add them actually in your Doobert org, it's pretty easy because you could pick from your org and attach them there. But that's really what we're going to do. We're just going to add one just for that. Now, as I mentioned before, when I hit save and continue, this is where I give you options, right? We've tried to put the power in your hands as transporters to say, how do you want to do this? You can individually create each leg. One of the cool features, I think, is I love to use our auto split leg, which I'll do in a second just to show you how that works. And then either if you don't have time or not as experienced or just want some additional help, checking this option will actually almost route this over to our volunteer coordinators. Think of it like a ticket. So it's kind of like we put it in a TC board where they can pick one of these, they'll get assigned to it, you'll get notified of who's your TC, and then they'll work with you to get the transport scheduled. So in my case, I'm going to actually do auto split just to kind of show you how that works. So you'll see it pops up with a default that says we'll break the route into legs, right? Our default is 60-mile legs, but you can just as easily make that say 75. Since we're doing a rescue relay transport, if you wanted handoff time between legs, allow volunteers to take pictures, things like that. Earliest starting and latest finish time, you'll find that there are actually transports. We have a lot of transports that are 20 or 30 legs, so they'll sometimes go for multiple days. So we do this to kind of have people not be driving at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, but you can, of course, specify that. You'll see the system now is going to break this into legs for you. In my case, we only were going from where I live in Pewaukee, so Milwaukee, Wisconsin, down to Chicago. So the total transport's really not that far. So in this case, it was only 2 legs. But if you were to come in and build your own legs, you see you can add ground legs, aviation legs, overnight legs. Pretty easy to do. If I click on the view map, we can see the system's already plotted the route, right? So you can see visually. It's also going to show you, keep in mind I'm in the sandbox, right? So I don't have as many fake users set up, but it'll show you the actual pins of every user. So you can kind of get a visualization. Is it better to go through this city? Is it better to go through that city in terms of the number of volunteers? And really that's it. So now all you're going to be doing, as you saw in my initial thing, is we're going to hit publish the transport. So at this point, you see the system now is going through and it's calculating who does it need to send emails to, and it's going to queue up all those emails, and literally within 5 minutes, that's the maximum amount of time from the time you hit publish, those emails are going to go out to the users, the relevant users, with all of the information that they need to determine if they can help out with this transport. So you'll see the system now has generated a unique transport page for this particular transport. So this is transport 4831. So it's my test transport. I can view it on a map. You can see the from and the to. It's got my information as the coordinator, automatically pulls in. People want to know who the coordinator is in case they have questions. All of the information that we put in, the sending and receiving information. So it's, again, a unique page generated just for this transport. The story, If we had pictures, we would display the pictures of the animals. Those also go out in the email to people. You can always attach additional information and rules and things like that. And then finally, the most important part is the legs. So when the volunteers come out actually to this transport, they're going to see the legs. They can see the pickup and drop off, and they'll actually have a button that says sign up for legs. So I'm viewing this as the coordinator, which is why it's saying, hey, do you want to sign a non-Doobert user to this transport leg? But the volunteers will be able to see the legs that are open. They can actually just add themselves very quickly to be able to sign up for that leg. That literally is, I talk really fast and went through it really quick, but I want you to kind of get an idea as to how super simple it is to create a transport request. And as I mentioned, you can create these to go across town. You can create them to go across the country. We do have some people that do, you know, for example, a one-leg transport. If you just need a volunteer to pick an animal up at a shelter or rescue, take them to a foster. And then we do have others that are moving animals and they're moving them in a rescue relay style. There was one I saw a couple of weeks ago that was 40 legs, and the transport actually took place over 3 days, and we were really excited to be able to support them. So there's lots of features that I don't want to overwhelm you, but I'm just going to kind of point some things out here. We try to support you in building the run sheet for you automatically. So since I know all of you guys are experienced transporters, you understand the importance of the run sheet and sending that out to volunteers. So we actually help to generate that automatically for you. So when the volunteers sign up for the leg, we automatically add them to the run sheet. And then once your transport's full and you confirm the transport, it will automatically send the run sheet out to all of the volunteers. As I've mentioned, you always have full control of your transport. So I personally cannot coordinate every transport. So I've tried to make this as flexible as possible to give you the power to do what you need to do. So you can always change the date, the legs, any of the information on your transport. We will take care of the notification, right? So if the volunteers have signed up and you change the date, we automatically send them a note and say, hey, the date has changed. You know, we kept you on the transport, but if you can't do it, you can go out and remove yourself. If more animals are added, again, we let the volunteers know. And if the transport unfortunately has to be canceled or rescheduled, we'll send out emails on your behalf letting them know. So we try to take some of that burden off of you to make it a little bit easier for you to coordinate multiple transports. Make it easier for you to share on social media. We do, every transport we automatically post into the Doobert transport Facebook groups for you to, again, try and get people that are on Facebook involved. But certainly we make it really easy. Just with one click of a button, you can share it to your Facebook, Twitter, Google+, or email if you want to email that out to people that are not Doobert users. There's lots of functionality, lots of capability. Tried to really make this as easy as possible on you guys as the transport coordinators. So that was my quick and dirty, just kind of how does a transport work. I'm going to show you just a couple more things that I mentioned in the beginning, and then I'm going to probably pause and kind of see if we have questions that are coming in via the chat, or we can open up the line as well for questions. Just to point out on your org dashboard, every transport is a unique event, right? So you see there's separate IDs, separate dates. You can even name your transports as I did. You'll be able to see at a glance. This is all real-time information, so every time you hit refresh or log in, you'll see exactly how many legs are filled. We will email you every time a volunteer signs up for one of your legs. You can view it in a calendar view. I find that kind of helpful to know when all of your transports are taking place. And then if you look down here, down the bottom, I mentioned that we have some other capabilities, and that's what I want to spend just a couple of minutes showing you how these work. Again, I'll remind you, I'm in a sandbox, so the volume is not here. So when I search for volunteers, you're not going to see 18,000 volunteers. But I mentioned before that you can search for volunteers. So for example, foster homes. So simple click of a button, you just choose the type of volunteer that you're looking for. So in my case, I'm saying I'm looking for a foster home. You'll see that our form now populates based upon some of the things that we built in for the foster home. I'm going to increase my radius to search just based upon the fact that I want to make sure I get some. And we're going to go ahead and hit search. you'll see the system now will return back the profiles of the people that match your search criteria. So I had a 500-mile radius, and I'm able to, just with one click, I can see Bob, I can see his profile description. Yeah, if I want to look more about Bob, I can click and I can actually see everything about Bob, right? All of the details that Bob has chosen to share. So Bob has complete control over his profile, just like you would on Facebook. So he has privacy settings and all those other things that he can set. So this is the information that Bob has made available. You can see Bob is actually a pilot. He said he can be an overnight foster home. And then for the foster, Bob's provided, we give him all sorts of questions, and Bob's provided information about the type of foster home that he could be, including references. So lots of information, again, to put the power at your fingertips as to whether or not you want to work with this person. And then, as you saw probably at the top here, just with a single click, you can click contact me, or you can click Bob's email and reach out to him and just say, hey, I found you on Doobert. We are looking to find a foster. Can you help us out? So that's pretty simple in terms of finding volunteers. I do want to point out that you can also see, if you click the map button here instead of on a grid, you can actually see the volunteers plotted on a map. And we plot them based upon their zip code. So I recognize, myself included, you don't have all the zip codes memorized for everywhere. So just kind of saying, hey, I know my zip code, but I want to look at a 500-mile radius around my zip code. We actually plot the volunteers, right? You can click on them, you can see all the information about them. And again, real quickly reach out to them to say, hey, can you help us out? So that's how it works to find what I call non-transport volunteers, because remember, the system will automatically notify the transport volunteers for you. I want to show you secondarily here how to find partner organizations. So partner organizations, again, think about it just, like the volunteers. We've got a very similar search in that we say we default in your zip code, how big of a radius you want to search. And then, are you looking for an organization that's providing animals or accepting animals? And then of the various different types. And like other searches that you've used, the less restrictive that you make it, the more records you'll get. And then certainly you're welcome to refine it down to as low a level as you want to refine it down to. And then the system will now return the results. And these are the organizations now that meet your criteria. Again, you can view them on a grid or on a map. And then the cool part is you can actually click to show animals that they've indicated that they're willing to transfer. And I'll show you, they can literally go in and with a couple of clicks, turn these on or off. So for example, trying to make this easier. So if an organization says, hey, we're a source and we'd love to work with other organizations, they can make it pretty much available. In real time, you could call them up and say, hey, look, I'm willing to take timber. And they say, great, we'll work with you. One click of the button, timber comes off, so the next person that searches, that animal is not available. So we're trying to help facilitate those types of conversations and sharing of information, but again, keep the power within the hands of the organizations. We know it's up to you guys to decide who and how you want to work with. We just want to try and make it a little bit easier if we can. So organizations, just like volunteers, all have organization profiles. Again, similar types of things, you're in full control over what information is shared or not, including your website and any organization guidelines or protocols, things like that. There's a lot more advanced functionality I'm not even going to go into, but just know I wanted to make sure that you guys are in full control over the information that's shared and how you interact and work with other organizations. All right, so I'm halfway through here, Amy. I want to pause because I've been talking quite a bit. Has there been any questions that have come in via chat that I need to address?
It doesn't look like it right now. Does anyone have any questions that you can feel free to put into the chat box or into the questions for Chris?
Okay, well, while people are either typing or thinking about that, let me show you a couple other couple other things that I think you'll find interesting as it relates to Doobert. So I'm going to pull up, hopefully my app view pops up here. So this is actually Doobert. We actually have a mobile app both for iPhone and for Android, and soon we'll be rolling out the Amazon version. So if you're not familiar, Amazon has their own tablets and phones and things like that. So we're going to have an Amazon app as well. It's primarily at the moment geared towards the volunteers, but we're excited this spring and into the summer to be able to add new functionality. So you'll be able to actually create transports and monitor your transports using the Doobert app. But one of the features I do find that's really nice is, as we talked about, loading up animal profile information. If you've already got a system, you know, coming to load it up onto Doobert is just another step to have to do. As I work to try and integrate to those other systems to automate the import, I've already built into this a feature that using the Doobert app, you can simply take a picture of the animal, give it a name, and it'll immediately show up in your Doobert organization. So I'm going to show you how easy that is. So I said I'm going to add an animal. I picked the organization that I work with because you can be in multiple organizations. I'm going to go ahead and add my new animal, right? So I'm going to say this is Chris. And I'm just going to say the mixed breed. So real basic information. And then I come down here and I click add photos. I'm going to take a picture, right? So you get to see that I'm on my screen here. Take a picture of my screen, right? And you say I've got that. It says it's set as, I can set this as my profile. I go ahead, hit add, and now the animal's been added. So from my phone, I just added an animal. And if I come over here to my animal profiles in the system, you'll see there it is, right? Right away, the animal profile shows up. Tried to make it as quick, as easy as possible, recognizing that you guys don't have time to be, you know, redoing all the same information over and over again. So that basic information is really all that's needed to create an animal profile. Remember, I mentioned before that available to transfer, right? So I've got this on-off slider, so I can turn it on, I can turn it off. The moment I turn it on, when somebody clicks on my organization and clicks show available animals, that one will show up. And the moment as I look down here to Bob, I say, oh, Bob's no longer available. I turn it off. Again, it's all real time. There's no delay. The next person that comes out and says show animals, they'll see that, you know, Bob, the animal, is not available. So you can see lots of advanced stuff I'm not going to go into. You can upload from Excel. We've developed ways to make things, you know, quick for you to add. And then if you really want to, you can see there's a whole kind of mini shelter management software, if I can call it that, right? So there's a lot of information you can put on the animals, including the type, the breeds, the status, you know, shelter and contact information. Even animal profiles, as you can see in here, have privacy settings, so you can choose what information about those particular animals that you want shared. So throughout Doobert, I've tried to, you know, think how would I want information to be shared, and I try to put the power back in your hands to make it pretty easy for you to control all of that information. Okay, so lots of volunteers love the app because we can immediately notify them, and they can sign up for transport actually through the app, so they can get notified, hey, there's a transport, click on it, see the legs, you know, and immediately join. As I mentioned, you'll get a notification that they've joined right away. So we try to keep things as real time as possible. So finally,
hey, Chris, I was just going to pause you. We do have a question, so you can finish where you're at, or we can pause and give you that question depending on what order works.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead. I'll take a question.
The question that came in is, what happens if an animal becomes ill during the transport?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So I think the answer to that question is it's really going to be up to you as the transport coordinator to work with and decide what should happen, right? So one of the things that I mentioned in the beginning is that Doobert's a little different than, say, a transport group, and that what I'm trying to provide is the tool, the platform, the software to facilitate the transport, but you as the transport coordinator are still in charge of that of that transport. So depending upon what the situation is with the animal, what I found that most organizations use Doobert, they'll either specify in their instructions to the volunteer, but usually what they'll say is, hey, you need to call the transport coordinator immediately so we can diagnose the situation. Is it, is it just motion sickness, or is it something more dire that requires immediate, transportation over to a vet? So in that particular case, I would say it's still up to you as the transport coordinator to decide what the best course of action is. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Okay. So I'll just show you a couple other things.
We do have a few more that Ray is going to relay for you.
Okay.
Great.
Go ahead.
All right. So we have another one from Christy, and she says, what happens if a volunteer's vehicle breaks down? She says, they'll pay for their own vehicle, but, if the weather's really hot or cold, what is the plan for the animals? And are they housed and cared for until the vehicle is fixed or another person picks them up? So kind of the logistics of what happens during a transport.
Yeah, no, good question. And so again, remember, we're trying to aggregate the volunteers, right? So there's still a lot of decisions that have to go into by you as the transporting organization. So it's up to you. So there are examples, as you've mentioned, where the volunteer's vehicle will break down, weather things happen. Unfortunately, volunteers sometimes are unreliable and they don't show up. So what we've tried to do is provide you guys with the tools to find additional volunteers. So there's a Doobert user map where you can see, where all of our volunteers are. So what I found some groups do is, in the event that they need to get an emergency volunteer, they'll come out to the Doobert user map, they'll drill into the actual area, and then they'll start contacting volunteers saying, hey, look, we just had this happen where so-and-so broke down, can you help us out? So again, trying to provide the tools to aggregate, all the possibilities, but it's not something that we as Doobert are going to be able to necessarily resolve for you.
Okay, great. That actually answered a few of the questions people had on here. There was one other at the beginning that came in and said, are you planning to show us sources, how we can connect with possible destinations to particular animals? And she said the website looks very user-friendly so far. So thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. So hopefully I answered it, but let me just make sure. So the partner organizations button down here that I kind of went to before, this is where I was trying to show you the source and destination. So providing animals or accepting animals, right? So in this case, if I was somebody that says, hey, look, I'm looking for somebody providing animals and I'm looking for somebody that's providing dogs, I would simply check dog, I would click search, and those organizations would show up here. And then as I showed you before, you can actually click show me the available animals, and then those available animals would show here. So you can actually look at those profiles. And then what you would do in that case is you would reach out to that organization. If you didn't already have a relationship with them, you would reach out to establish the relationship with them. As I'm sure you guys know, some organizations want paperwork, some organizations okay with an email. So whatever is required to establish that relationship, but I'm trying to facilitate the information. So hopefully I answered Amanda's question.
Yeah, I think that's good for now. And if we have some more questions come in, we'll let you know.
Okay, great. Well, let me just show you just a couple other things more to kind of give you an idea as to how Doobert works. So there are two sides to Doobert. There's the organization side, which I've spent the bulk of my time here going into, but you can also see the My Dashboard. So this is more the volunteer side. Every person that uses Doobert has a unique ID and password. There is one person that is the organization owner. So I'm going to show you in a second how you can sign up your organization. And then that organization owner can extend the privileges of the organization to other Doobert users. So for example, if you're the director of a shelter or of a rescue, but you've got a team of people that you work with, you're in control. You can add them. All they have to do is come out to Doobert, sign up as a general user. You can add them to your organization, and you can all be sharing the same information. So you can all be interacting with the transports, with the animal profiles. You're in, essentially one Doobert org, but you're all logging in as yourselves. And so you'll see, if I flip over here to more of the volunteer side, you'll see this is what a volunteer would see, that they're a transporter. I mentioned the PAW rating, right? So from the feedback, if there was a transport and there was feedback that was given. So that's what that is. Volunteers can see the transports that they've signed up for. They can see the information on who the coordinator is. They can find transports near them. And then, as I mentioned, volunteers have different types of profiles that they get to set up. So the transporter one of the things that we do for them is we help them to specify their radius circle. So, we try to explain to them how Doobert works is that, if the transport plots through their circle, we send them a note, and if not, we don't, in an effort to try and eliminate transports that are just not relevant to them. But what's cool about Doobert is that every volunteer can update their profile at any time, and it's immediate. There's no delay, there's no form that's being submitted, and somebody's going to go update their profile. It's all real time in the system. So if I, as a volunteer, came out here and I updated my profile to include another day that I'm available, the very next person that hits publish on the org side to publish a transport, the system will take all that information into account. One thing I do want to point out is very excited that just about a month ago, we rolled out a new feature to try and incorporate airline employees. As I'm sure a lot of people know, anybody that works for the airline, flight attendants, pilots, mechanics, gate agents, they have free flight privileges. So they get one of the perks of working for an airline is you get to fly for free. And there are a number of different transport groups of airline employees that, offer to transport animals. And so what we're trying to do is, again, help facilitate. So we have a profile that they can set up, and then a particular type of airline transport request that you can make. Airline transport ones are a little bit different because the animals have to be less than 16 pounds because they're going in the cabin, and that's just what's required in order to do it. But particularly for smaller dogs, puppies, kittens, they're a great way to, to get some additional volunteers involved. So it's just another option that we try to make available to you guys to make it easier to find transport.
Hey, Chris, this is Amy. We do have a couple more questions. Both of them are kind of related back to sort of responsibility, liability, monitoring the transport. So generally speaking, I know we talked about if an animal gets sick, you kind of talked to that, but we have a more general question about who it's really up to monitor the transport. And the question is it up to them to monitor start to finish the transport, or Doobert itself, the application? So that's kind of one piece of it. And so then also just wanting to find out, kind of in context of that, if Doobert has volunteers sign a liability waiver, for example, if someone gets bit, who would be responsible for medical costs? If a cat sprays in the van and runs it, who's responsible? So those kinds of things. Do you have any tidbits on sort of the overarching who's kind of in charge and monitoring the transport generally, and then some of that liability responsibility piece?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to answer. So let's start with the coordinator side. First is you, as the creator of the transport request, are by default the coordinator. But as I mentioned, and let me just kind of go back and show you, we give you the option to send the transport to one of our volunteer transport coordinators. So from a who's responsible for monitoring the transport, really it's you, if you're the one that is acting as the TC on your transport. But if you're not able to, or you're looking for some help, that's what this option is down here. And then what we have is that TC board. So if I were to send this one here to our volunteers, you'll see we submitted your request, right, for a transport to the volunteer transport coordinators. They'll grab it off the board, assign it to themselves. You'll get an email that says, hey, we found a volunteer transport coordinator to help you. So you can connect with them, work out any details, logistics, stuff like that. And then they'll do the legwork of publishing the transport, hopefully helping to publicize it, following up on it, monitoring it the day of, all those other things. I've developed a training course via some YouTube videos to try and train these volunteers as best I can on how some of the rules work for volunteer transport in terms of the state rules and just in general, how does it work between ground and aviation and things like that. And so that's kind of what those volunteers are there for. When it comes to what are people agreeing to liability-wise, et cetera, when they sign up on Doobert as a volunteer, there are terms and conditions that they're agreeing to just in general to be on Doobert. We make it really clear to them that they're a volunteer, that they are taking on this responsibility. But I've also built in some additional layers that I'm going to show you here, that every organization, if you'd like, you can have an additional level of requirements. So this one is edit our specific terms to transport here. So you'll see there's a button here. It says require agreement to your organization's specific terms to transport. This is a free-form text box that you can input. So for your organization, if you have specific rules or specific liability waiver or whatever it might be, if you turn this on, the very first time a volunteer comes to sign up for one of your transports, they are given a choice. Here's the rules. Do they agree or not? If they agree, we log that they agreed and we don't hit them up every single time. If they don't agree, they're not allowed to sign up for your transport. So we've tried to say, hey, look, we're going to provide that level of making it clear to people you're a volunteer via the terms and conditions of the website, but I also recognize that everybody's got a different level that they want to do, so you can put in your specific terms and we try to help facilitate, so you know that once they've signed up for your transport, if you have this turned on, you know they agreed to those terms and conditions that you specified in there. And then as I mentioned, I just want to point out again that we also have a blacklist and whitelist. So we have, oh, there it was. You can actually block a volunteer. So if there's ever somebody that you unfortunately had a bad experience with, all you would have to do is block this volunteer. You can search for them, block them. If you block this user, they're no longer going to get emails. As far as that user is concerned, you don't exist, right? So when we go through, even if it's relevant for them, we immediately look at your block list and we block them. And then if you're really, really, really advanced, and you say, yeah, I'm not interested in using your volunteers, can we still use Doobert if we've got our volunteers? The answer is yes. That's what's called a whitelist. So you can set up that only these volunteers should get our transport. So if you had a list of 10 volunteers and you said, only these volunteers should get our transports, we can absolutely help you set that up as well. Again, trying to give you flexibility as to how it all works. Other questions, Amy?
Not that I can see at this time. Did you have any others come in that I can't see, Rhea?
Nope, looks like we've got everybody so far. If you have any others, feel free to put them in the box. Actually, we just had one come in from Becky, and she says, the horse transports, are there any additional checks done about trailers?
Yeah, good question. I have been looking to try and find people that do horse transport to help me to build Doobert out. So I would love to hear from you, Becky, because one of the things I don't want to just assume that I understand the right way to do it. I can very easily add trailers as an option, but to be honest with you, I don't know a lot about horse transport. So I would love to work with somebody that can help me to design it in the right way so that it's the most effective. So that I know the right questions asked. You need to know the size or the weight or the pictures or things like that. I would love to work with you to build that out. So that's how I answer that one.
All right, and we had one more also come in from Marissa, and she says, do Doobert volunteers provide crates for their vehicles?
Yeah, so great question. I always tell the Doobert volunteers that they should have their own crates. We make it easy when you're creating the transport to specify whether or not crates are provided. Generally, what I found is that the only time crates are provided by the sending organization is if they're puppies and there are no paws on the ground. So we do educate the volunteers when they sign up for Doobert. They get a welcome email. We have videos, and we do explain to them that they should provide their own crates. And we try to, as you all know, there are some larger dogs, for example, that you might be able to tether in the back seat if that's what you wanted to allow the volunteers to do. So we try to make it as flexible for you to indicate crates are provided, tethers are provided, or nothing's provided, and here's what you need, so that the volunteers are prepared and they can decide if they can help in that transport or not.
All right, that looks like all of them for now.
Okay, great. Well, let me just show you a couple last things here, give you time to enter in any final questions, and I'll make sure that we end on time. Again, I mentioned all you have to do is I'll show you if you just type in your browser, you go to doobert.com. You'll see a big button here that says, I'd like to sign up. You click, I'd like to sign up. And in your case, you want to sign up as an organization, right? So volunteers, they would click just me, but you're an organization. And you see, if you prefer, you can sign up using Facebook. Some people prefer that. Otherwise, you can sign up as an organization. Obviously, specify that you're not a robot. So we're creating an organization profile, and if you recall, I mentioned that we do validate every organization. So we allow animal welfare organizations, and because for some of the new features we're coming out with, we're going to also allow commercial transport organizations. And then the process is pretty simple. The information is kind of what I think you'd expect. You can put in your address. Another cool new feature we just added is an org acronym. And the reason we added this is so that when the transports come out, instead of it being DBT and a 4-digit number, we'll actually use your acronym. So in this case, we would use FDR. If you're 501c3 certified or not, it'll ask you for the file. And then because all of you guys are Best Friends Network partners, you're more than welcome to skip the references stuff and just put, BFAS network partner. You can just put in, fake information in this stuff just so the system will take it. And that's really all you have to do, right? So if I could type faster. Oops. And then we will go ahead and get you approved right away. It happens really quick. So you'll see this information here is kind of like the final information for you as to what you want to show in your profile. So you see this is how we'll use it to show, within your organization. You can describe your organization, what you're all about, any specific rules for interacting. So these are kind of like the general rules, not necessarily the ones that are required to sign up. If you have documents or things, pictures that you want people to be able to see, and then any additional comments, and then just hit submit, and the system will send it over. And like I said, we'll get you approved and get you in the system pretty quick so that you can get going.
All right, and we did have one more question come in, and it is, if the transport had something contagious, how do we know that the volunteer cleaned appropriately so it does not spread?
Good question. And 100% understand why you'd ask that. One of the things I've been trying to do is to further continue to educate volunteers. And so there's a lot of emails that automatically trigger from the system, as I mentioned, welcome emails and videos and FAQs and things like that. So what we're trying to do from a Doobert standpoint is to educate the volunteers as best we can. Certainly we're not able to guarantee anything. I can't, go to somebody's house and make sure they cleaned it properly. But, our perspective is by trying to educate people as to the importance of this and cross-contamination and the proper way to do these things, giving them the resources at their fingertips. We're hopeful that that will get them down that path. But just to be clear, again, I can't control exactly what they're going to do or not do.
Okay, it looks like that's going to be the last question.
Great. Well, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share this with you guys, and I will turn it back over to you, Amy.
All righty. Thank you so much for taking the time to share the how-tos behind using Doobert. I know a lot of times until you put your hands on it, you may have some additional how to use the software questions. So that's what we'll talk about for just a few minutes now. We don't have a lot of time, but I want to make sure you guys know that we'll send out a recording of this webinar. And we also will make sure that you have an opportunity to ask questions in our Best Friends digital community, where Chris will be able to jump in and answer those questions that you have. So just make sure after this call that you register your organization on doobert.com. And like he said, you can skip that reference section since you're already a Best Friends Network partner. And then I'm going to take just a couple minutes to show you how to get into the community if you're not already registered. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because we're about out of time, but these three slides that you'll see will be something that we can give you if you're not able to get into it right away on the call. You'll want to register. The network.bestfriends.org, it's actually /digital community. It looks like my graphic covered over the tail end of that, but it's a hyperlink that'll take you right to the registration page. Just an email and password is all you'll need. And this community is also generally set up for all of our network partners. So not just for this pilot in particular, but we're building this community to create a hub for all of our partners, for you guys to be able to connect with each other around various interests, expertise areas, regions, etc. So this pilot would be one area where we can connect you to each other who are all doing the pilot. Once you're in, you'll see a screenshot on the right. You'll be inside the Best Friends community that you can see highlighted in orange there. At the top right of the screen, you'll click on your avatar until you put a picture. It'll be a little kitty cat avatar, and you'll edit your profile with a couple of things. If you can make your screen name as clear as possible of who you are and your organization that you're with. I gave an example of my screen name there. If you put a photo in to kind of personalize it, that helps make you stand out from all the rest of the avatars. And then anything that you tell us about you and your organization and your interests and your expertise really help us have the foundation to connect you guys with the right people who have similar areas of interest and expertise. So that's something that we're working on in general in this community so that we can have it be something that's really effective for you guys. The more information that you provide us about yourself and your organization makes it easier for us to do that. Make sure once you do all of those things in the profile, shouldn't take you long at all, make sure to save it. And then something that'll make it really easy for Chris to get the questions and for you guys to ask the questions is to follow him. His screen name is Doobert. And so you can find him, you'll click follow right. You can see his little kitty cat avatar in the bottom right there. There's a following icon. Since I'm already following him, you can see the check mark next to the word following. And then all of the questions we ask around this particular topic will be inside of our data technology topic in the digital community. And so if you follow that topic, any question that comes in, you'll see those. So we just want to make sure some of those few little things that you only have to do one time happen just to make it as easy as possible for you. And then when you do actually have a question, you're already registered and all that good stuff. Right at the top of the screen, you'll see in my screenshot on the right, it says what's on your mind. And you click that and it just gives you a couple things to fill out to tell us what your question is. You can tell us the title of your question, and I put some formatting in there that'll help it make it really clear that it's a Doobert pilot question. I gave an example of signing in there on the right. That says optional, but for this pilot, if you could please give it a title, that'll help us. Like I said, choosing the data technology topic. I have a couple of tags that would be cool for us from an organizational perspective to put Doobert and transport in there so we can file these based on tags. And then another cool feature that we have is at mentioning, kind of like you would do on Facebook. Since we know Chris's screen name is Doobert, before you type your question, just the at symbol, start typing Doobert. You'll see a drop down that shows up, as you can see in my screenshot, and you just click on his name and it'll put him into your post. Then you can continue to type your question, click post, And immediately Chris will be notified via email that you have asked a question in the community that's been directed at him in particular. And then when he responds to your question, you'll also be notified. So we want to make it as easy as possible for you guys to get specific help around this particular pilot. And that's basically it. We're out of time. So we want to thank you once again for coming. Look for the follow-up email with this recording and these steps so that we can get you into the community to get your questions answered. And we encourage you to ask questions. We'd love to be able to help you. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day.